been thinking a lot about this clip from Russell Brand. He's interviewing this guy named Michael Singer.
The last time we spoke, I was in a state of crisis. I recall using you almost as a therapist. I felt like, right, I'm talking to Michael Singer now. This is a person who I regard as a sort of a modern day sage, a contemporary yogi, an unordained priest. So now that I'm in this position of crisis, instead of interviewing Michael in an abstract way, I'm going to speak to him plainly and candidly about my fears. Well, today, I feel that because of the nature of the work we generally do, where we talk about political corruption, centralised power, the nature and role of the media in keeping a population spellbound, I wonder how you feel that your work, which focuses on individual and personal awakening, an ability to sort of almost become, I don't want to mangle your life's work, but to become the witness consciousness rather than the objects within our consciousness, to try to get beyond the stored fear and anxiety that most of us experience. How do you feel that this individual work relates to the kind of society that we're living in and the kind of systems that we occupy? And also, Michael, because I know your answer, I pray your answer will be a long and coherent one. How do you feel that these are individual problems that we're experiencing, or problems that are somehow socially induced?
Okay, thank you. It's actually a very easy answer. The question is, how do you want to go? Let's start with a hypothesis. Let's say that every single person on the earth was completely content, happy, filled with love, and feeling peace inside. There would be no wars. There'd be no conspiracies. There'd be no conspiracy theories. There would just be people getting along. John Lennon, imagine all the people living life in peace, or sharing all the world. If you're okay inside, you're not manipulating other people. There is no fear of some centralized government that wants to take from you, or has some motive that individual, Congress and different people have motives to stay in power and so on. The only reason people want all that because they're not okay. That's why people want power. That's why people want to control other people, because they're not okay within themselves. So kind of a fun way to talk, which is very different from how people talk. What if everyone was okay?
Yeah.
You wouldn't have these problems, all right? So I don't see working on yourself as an individual thing. I see it as the only solution in the end that can bring about peace and harmony and people not manipulating each other. Because that's all you're talking about, is why are people manipulating each other, right? Why do big companies try to make money? Why does this happen? Why does all the difference happen? Because they're not okay. Why do people, other than basic needs, why do people need all this money? Why do they need jets? Why do they need to do all this stuff? The answer is they don't, but they do because they're not happy. They're not satisfied with their lives. They need to do things to compensate for the fact that they're not okay inside. That's the basic bottom thing. Everybody is out there, whether it be relationships, whether it be money, whether it be power and pride and success. I'm not okay, and I feel great when everybody claps. I don't know about you. Right? If everybody writes, if I get 7 million upvotes, I'm not a Facebook guy, I'm not on Facebook, but I think there's such a thing as, acceptance, whatever it is, vote, yeah, you feel wonderful that day. If all of a sudden you get a bunch of downvotes, you don't feel so good.
So that explains narcissism. We need people to clap for us because we're not okay inside. As a musician, that resonates with me. So if we stopped needing people to clap for us because we were okay inside, I wonder if we'd still have music performances. But that's another topic. I think it's interesting that narcissism is kind of the problem he alludes to here, and why the moguls treat us peasants the way they do.
That's because you're not okay. You need things from outside to fix what's wrong inside of you so that you can get energy inside, so it can come up. I like to imagine what it would be like if everybody naturally felt all this beautiful energy, this beautiful love. We would not have a single problem. You might not have a podcast. I don't know what I would do. All right. There'd be no reason to be having all these talks, because people would respect each other. They'd honor each other. They'd share with each other. Why would they share? Because they don't need anything, right? If I'm totally content, I would rather help you because I don't need anything. So that's what this work is inside. And it's not an individual thing. It's how to fix all of society. If people are not okay, they rob, they steal, they rape, they do all kinds of things, correct?
Yes.
What if they were okay? The only way to actually change that is for a person to work on themselves. You're the only one in there. Only you can work on yourself, right? You can get other people to behave in a way that makes you feel better inside, but then you're manipulating. Right. I'm weird, right? I look at the core of things because I think things have to change at the core. And I can't change everybody else. I really can't, okay? I can manipulate somebody or try to make them be the way I want them to be, but I can't do everything, all right? So I have to decide at some point in my life, and I decided very young, am I going to sit there and let all that stuff you just talked about ruin my life? Because it is that way. It was that way when Christ was here. It was not that way when Buddha was here. It's been that way for a very, very long time. Why is it that way? I told you, because people are not okay. That's the core. People are not okay. So therefore, they're doing all the things that you talk about, right? They're manipulating, they're taking, they're advertising so they can make money. They're doing everything. You're right. You're absolutely right. If things are the way you want them to be outside, you feel better inside. If things are not the way you want them to be outside, you feel worse inside. So you have a choice. Go out there and say, I have to change everything, which you already told me makes you neurotic. Yeah. I have to change every single thing, every single moment so I can be okay inside. Or you can say, wait a minute, I'm the one who's in here. And you're going to find out if you do real work on yourself, and I'm not saying you don't, but if you do real work on yourself, that you're causing your own problems inside. Yes. You're not causing everybody else to be the way they are, but you're causing the fact that if somebody doesn't like you, it bothers you, right? Well, that's silly. Everybody's different. Everybody likes different people. It doesn't have to bother you. So you start to work inside to say, can I at least set an example for humanity, all right, that you can be okay in the middle of all this, or you can complain about it, but it doesn't do any good. You understand that? You just sit there and talk and complain about how things are. Yes, they are that way. You are absolutely correct. They are that way, okay? And it does affect you inside. Why? You're inside. It's outside. Can you do something to where you're at peace inside, you're whole inside, so that now you can come out and instead of complaining, I'm not saying you're complaining, you're very good and you help a lot of people, but instead of it just being a lot of what's wrong, you can come out here and help, all right? But you have to be okay yourself. So how do you do that? And you talked about meditating, and you talked about, you know, beautiful that you got off of substance abuse and so on and so forth. I'm very, very proud of you. It's very beautiful. And it sets a good example for everybody, all right? And I'm very happy that you're such a popular position and you can set that example. That comes naturally. But inside, why are you bothered by what's going on outside? Literally, let's be scientists. Why are you bothered by what's going on outside? If you close your eyes, you're still bothered what's going on outside. You understand that, right? It's because your mind has decided how things should be.
Yes.
For you to be okay.
Yes.
Your mind, but everyone's mind is different. Remember Skinner? I'm the sum of my learned experiences, right?
Is that B.F. Skinner, behavioralism?
Yeah, and he said, man is the sum of his learned experiences. You're not the sum of your learned experiences. You're the consciousness that is aware that your mind is the sum of your learned experiences, and your emotions are the sum of your learned experiences. Period. You know that. One change, and all of a sudden you're thinking different. Okay. So you look at it and you realize I have made up in my mind how everything needs to be for me to be okay. And I've made up in my mind how if things are a certain way, I won't be okay. That would kill me. I can't handle that. Yeah. I like that. My favorite word, I can't handle that. In other words, I'm going to get screwed up inside. Why can't you change that? You're in there. And what I found over years and years, 50 years, is it's because I blocked everything that ever bothered me throughout my life. Right? If my parents got divorced, if this happened, if I hurt somebody and now it bothers me, I stored bother inside of me. Correct?
Yes.
Everything that ever bothered me. It comes back up. It comes up in my dreams. It comes up when somebody says something. Oh my God, that hurt me. Okay. Why? Because you stored this stuff inside. And my experience is, as you learn to let go of that stuff inside, underneath it, there's this beautiful energy. The energy that you feel when things are the way you want, whether it be relationships, whether it be success, that energy is always there. Yeah. It's just you set up conditions that have to happen for you to feel it. When you start to let go of those conditions, which are based upon your suppressed stuff, it's not different than psychology, it just goes deeper. all right? It's based on this. Freud was right. You store stuff inside. You have hands inside that push things away and grab things, don't you?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you learn to stop doing that. It's very deep. You learn to relax when you would have pushed it away. What happens? All of a sudden, it makes it through. Like 99.99% of everything you ever experienced made it right through.
It's intriguing because he says that you can be okay inside and give yourself permission to be okay, even if the rest of the world is fucked up. And I like that idea, even though it seems like what I've always thought of as conservative. I was talking to my girlfriend this morning when we were on our dog walk, and it really seems more and more apparent that there isn't much use in the word conservative anymore, or liberal. I played this TikTok for a friend of mine, and we were thinking about the message. It was a bunch of guys singing, and they were talking about big government, and I asked him if he assumed that the people singing the song were conservatives, and he said yes. And I said, no, they're leftists. They're radical leftists, but they're leftists. And he agreed with everything they were saying. So it's interesting to think of how useless the terms conservative and liberal and left and right have become. Communism, socialism. My friend was saying that the early church was definitely communistic because it held everything in common. And so then you're wrapped up with the idea of traditional beliefs. Russell Brand talks about the division in our culture often comes along those lines. Traditional religious beliefs or family values or whatever nomenclature you like. When you're looking at the division that way, it's useless again, because there are quite a few leftists who have traditional views. Anarchy is an interesting idea because really it means you don't want a hierarchy. You don't want a monarch. You don't want an oligarchy. You want no hierarchy, no authority, really. It's a kind of a way of saying that nobody should have authority over others. And if you're really radical that way, you might be called a libertarian. But that idea of liberty being paramount isn't a left or a right idea. And so again, it's all, to me, one of the central issues is freedom. And so I identify as an anarchist because I don't want hierarchy. I don't want a limit on my freedom that comes arbitrarily just because someone has authority. I would rather, and if you think about the word anarchy, it doesn't mean chaos. There's order, but it isn't hierarchical order. So people decide together. It can be messy, if not chaotic, to come up with a process where people agree on things with no one having authority. The reason Michael Singer is so interesting to me is because he makes it individual. And he seems to be a leftist, but he agrees with Ayn Rand in some ways, which is fine. And again, this is where it doesn't make any sense to even worry about left or right, or conservative, or liberal, or progressive, or any of those useless words. What we need, I think we all need freedom. I don't think we need authority. I think people who are operating in good faith, or who have the proclivity to operate in good faith, will do so if they're treated with respect. As a teacher, I've seen children behave the way I expected them to behave. So if I treated them like they were bad, they would act that way. If I treated them like they were good, typically they would behave that way. I see it with grandchildren. It's interesting how detaching from control, and this is a Michael Singer idea, releasing control, the need to control the outcome, surrendering. That, when you're working with other people, especially if you're in a traditional position of authority over them, if you surrender your need to control them, they take over the responsibility and they control themselves much better. That's true in a workplace also. It's true in schools, it's true at work, it's true in a family. When we let go of our need to control things, the other side does better at taking up the slack. It works with husbands and wives, and boyfriends and girlfriends, and boyfriends and boyfriends, and girlfriends and girlfriends, and any other arrangement. When people let go of the need to control, the other side is more cooperative. The interesting thing with Michael Singer is you're thinking also you can give up your need about being controlled. You can surrender that way, and that goes to what Jesus said about turning the other cheek. What did he say about authority? He said a few things about authority. Surrendering, submitting to authority is a powerful way to get that authority to behave better. You think, okay, especially as a union person, a lifetime union member, it's the first time in I don't know how many years, many decades, this year that I haven't been a union member. But as a lifetime union member, I've been taught that the management is going to always screw you if possible. Frederick Douglass, power concedes nothing without a demand. And yet I've seen in every kind of relationship, in every type of human connection, that sometimes surrendering control allows the other person to relax and not be as controlling. What Michael Singer was telling Russell Brand is that Russell has agreements with himself that if the world is fucked up to a certain degree, Russell can't be happy. He already knows in advance that if the world is acting in a certain way, he cannot be happy as an individual within that world. And the only pathway to his happiness is to fix the world, which is a pretty tough thing. And Michael says, well, to fix the world, everyone has to be happy. It's a vicious circle. So if you have to be happy to fix the world, and the world needs you to be happy before it will be fixed, what are you going to do? How do you break into that circle? And Michael posits that you need to be happy. That individual first needs to be happy. And then he says the world will be fine. And all the Christmas messages I've been thinking about, especially the older songs, have hope that the world, the weary world, can be healed and that people can be happy as a collective. And the idea of Christmas is that the coming Christ, with authority, the government will be upon his shoulder, will give us all happiness. But the opposite way of thinking is we'll find a way to be happy under any circumstances, and then the world in the process will get fixed. So it's not a Messiah coming to fix everything, but it could be a Messiah inspiring us and teaching us that baby, the Christ child, could come in and lead us to be happy within ourselves individually. And then it would be easy to fix the world would already be fixed if everybody individually follows the example of the Savior and in essence saves themselves, each person individually. And if you think about a king, if Christ is the king, the anointed, appointed ruler, eternal Father, Prince of Peace, and the government is upon his shoulder, it sounds like ruling without consent of the governed. And none of our modern constitutions allow for that, for a king to come in and just call the shots, even a beneficent king. So if the Messiah is going to save us, what needs to be done may already have been done. We may already have seen how we need to be by example, and instead of waiting for a king to come in authority, we can just, without any need for authority, in kind of an anarchical way, be okay. We can be okay with authority. It doesn't have to be like Frederick Douglass, but at the same time, we end up in a relationship where authority isn't needed. So if the king comes and we all just follow, the king won't need an army over the people. The king won't need an army over the people who don't agree, because the people who don't agree, if there is goodwill, will agree. And not because they have to. Probably the opposite, because they don't have to. I don't agree on anything if I have to. I'd much rather die, as anybody who knows me well will tell you. I would rather have freedom by far than life without freedom. And so if we're going to have freedom, it has to be consensual. There is no model where a king can come in with authority, and by virtue of that authority, using it, I mean, he could have it, or she could have it, the ruler or rulers could have authority and then not use it. That would work, probably. The big stick that's never used. But there would have to be love wielded instead. Love and good teaching, good example. There couldn't be hypocrisy at the top. So if there is a coming monarchy, I believe consent of the governed would still be necessary. And I take everything literally. Angels, I take literally. Demons, I take literally. I don't think of them like people think of Santa Claus. I think there are real angels and real demons. And I think if there is a second coming, or if there is a third or fourth or fifth coming, because this story is very old, much older than Jesus. If there is a monarch, a rightful ruler, a righteous ruler coming, there still needs to be consent. And again, that doesn't start with a collective. That starts with every individual. So we'd have to figure it out. I'll leave you with this idea. I was thinking about World War II and the front between the German forces and the Allied forces on a Christmas Eve. It must have been in the early 40s. And the story is, I think it was at midnight. That's always a good way to tell the story, even if it's not true. Everyone came out of the foxholes on both sides of the line, and they sang Christmas carols together. That sounds like goodwill, good faith. And if that idea could take hold, how would there ever be war again? people would assume the best of each other, and they would get what they expected. And in that way, ruling would happen from the individual level. Another idea just hit me when I was listening to Perry Como sing "God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen." I was thinking about the words when he came to save us all from Satan's power when we were gone astray. The Christ child came to save us from Satan's power when we were gone astray. And there are other Christmas songs that have references to sin and sinning and sinners. And when you're thinking about Michael Singer and what he says, what he was telling Russell Brand, it's a different idea. It's not sinning. It's not purposefully doing something wrong. It's being afraid, I'd say. That's not what he says, but I'd say that when you are doing things that the world doesn't condemn, but they make you not okay, or if just your circumstances have led to you being in a state that makes you not okay. So we're not blaming anybody, not victim blaming or victim shaming. And Michael wasn't doing that either. He was just saying, if we do the work individually to be okay inside, the world will be okay. So as I think about sin, I think about the things that happen when we get angry. A lot of the things that Darth Vader did, he did because he was afraid. Yoda said, "In you I sense much fear." And that's the root of anger. It's the root of probably everything that you could call sin. It's what we do when we're not doing what we think we ought to do or what we want to do. And if we were more powerful, and that's where the "God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen" lyrics come in, we could resist ourselves or Satan or whatever forces are pushing us away from what we would rather be doing. So that's an idea about redemption. You can be redeemed from everything that you dislike about yourself or about the world just by getting everything right on your own place, in your own place, getting your own house in order individually. So this idea of saving us from Satan's power could be that we're barking up the wrong tree, that instead we can figure out what we need to do as individuals. And I would say, in addition to what Michael said, what we need to do to stop being afraid. And then I don't think we would do anything individually that went against our own values. And if that happened, we can tweak our values, we can fiddle with them, but I'd say that if people in the world all followed their own values, whatever they are, whatever they are, that's a tough one, because people do have shitty values. But if no one was afraid, I think that everyone's values would be a lot better. So if we, and I don't think anyone wants to be afraid. I think we'd all agree individually, collectively, that we don't want to be afraid. So that would be like a messianic age. When everyone stopped being afraid, they would develop good values. They wouldn't need any hierarchy. They wouldn't need any authority to push them to do what they need to do. As an aside, teachers often feel as though, and they're enculturated to feel this way, that they need to have a strong plan in place to force people to do what they wouldn't ordinarily do. And that's discipline in a lot of people's minds. When you're disciplining yourself and others, you're doing things by force that you wouldn't ordinarily want to be doing. And religion has those trappings. Keeping yourself from doing what you would ordinarily want to do. Like, sin is something you might want to do, and then you need help not to do what you would ordinarily want to do. And I think we need to evolve to a place where we want to do what's best for us to do. And I think we can do that easily without fear. So that's an application of what we were talking about when we're talking about getting ourselves fixed on the inside individually. I think if you're in the Christmas season and you're listening to all of the songs and maybe sermons that talk about peace in the world, a world at peace, that's what it takes. And I think Michael's on the right track.